Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, some very exciting news broke on Wednesday morning. The Wildcat Report, the rival site for Northwestern, reporting that the Ohio State Northwestern game is not quite officially, but just about almost entirely officially going to be played at Wrigley Field this fall. I'm pretty excited to see a football game there. I've seen baseball games there. I was thinking, oh, it would be great to have Tony on to do a morning show. We got to do it right now because the news just broke. Tony, of course, is a Cubs fan, so of course he'd be excited. And Tony's like, no, I don't. I'm unavailable. Talk to my secretary. Talk to my people. Have your people talk to my people. I'm like, I don't even have people. And Tony's like, well, you need to talk to my people. So I finally got through Tony's people and got him on it. Not the morning show, but Tony, are you excited to watch a football game inside Wrigley Field?
I think what I'm most excited about, if this happens, if this comes to fruition, is just having free reign of the place and seeing like behind the scenes of it. I have no idea what it's going to look like for a game. It's probably not going to be great, but we've also been to places where, that are like the NFL stadiums where the press box is like in a corner. Like, this thing is not going to be a great view. But yeah, I'm excited. We talked about this maybe last week in terms of where would this game be, because Northwestern doesn't know where most of their games are going to be. They're playing a home game in Green Bay against Wisconsin, for crying out loud. So we thought, well, maybe, but the assumption would be that it would be Soldier Field, just because like I can't imagine Wrigley as the first choice. So you just have to assume Soldier Field is booked up or something like that. But I'm excited about it because I like going and visiting new places, and I haven't been to Wrigley Field since 1990 something when Barry Bonds was playing. So it's been a while.
I was just there a couple of years ago. I was in Chicago for something and took my son to a game there, and I hadn't been there since 2000 or so. The ballpark has changed quite a bit over the last 20 years. The area around the ballpark has changed quite a bit over the last 20 years. But yeah, it's still one of those places you walk in and you're like, I know exactly where I am without, you could get just like, kidnapped and thrown in the back of a van and blindfolded and just get dumped on the corner, and they could cover up all the signage and it would just be like that red shape on the side of the stadium behind home plate. It'd be like, oh, I know where I am. I know where I am. And yeah, it is an iconic venue. It is a cool venue to experience. It is not a great place to watch a sporting event because it does not feature many of the modern conveniences. Like, they have done a ton of work there, and you go down the concourses and it's still like real tight in the concourses. If you've ever been to Fenway Park, it's the same thing. It doesn't have a lot of the modern niceties, but that's okay. And Tony, I have been in old dumpy football stadiums to watch Ohio State Northwestern games in the greater Chicagoland area. The only difference is this time it'll be a different one, and it will be less windy, probably. So that'll be exciting.
Perhaps it'll be less windy. Nobody cares about the logistics of it, but I'm wondering, where in the world do we park? What is that kind of situation? And there is no way any major league stadium has prepared for the Ohio State football beat. So there's not going to be enough room for us. There's going to be, there's a lot of sideline room, so we might be off there. There's going to be somewhere else. Well, you guys will be sitting in these four sections up here, and using your laptop on your lap out in the elements or whatever. So I'm interested to see how that works, because no game that has ever been played there has ever featured the Ohio State contingent, which is sizable, and just, we demand perfection, Tom. We produce perfection. We demand it from others, and I don't see it happening. But that's not slowing down my excitement for experiencing a game there.
I'm still just basking in the glow of you thinking about the fact that you might have to watch a football game out in the elements. Some of us, Tony, do that every week. Are they heroes? Yes. Yeah, unquestionably, they are heroes. As for the parking, it will probably not surprise you to learn that Kevin Newton and I have already been game planning that. The answer, friends, is take the train to the game. If you watch the morning show with us talking about that, you'll hear me telling you, take the train to the game. Do not drive. It costs $Texas to park anywhere near Wrigley Field, and there's not very many places. Just get a hotel downtown. Take the red line up. Kevin said the brown line works as well, so just take the L up there. It'll be, whatever, $5 or whatever the L costs right now. And parking anywhere near Wrigley Field, you can do Spot Hero or whatever for Cubs games. I did that and it was like $30 and I parked 5 blocks away or something like that. But for a football game like this, there's going to be more out-of-towners. Take the train to the game. Take the train to the game. Take the train to the game.
I reached out to Ohio State for confirmation, and they said they have not heard anything like this. It's not been confirmed or anything like that. I suggested, hey, can I throw my vote in for Lucas Oil instead, just because it's a lot easier? To which the response was, hey, how about Ohio Stadium for a 9th home game? And I thought, boy, imagine the outrage if this game got moved to Ohio Stadium, or at least the state of Ohio, which would not be the first time that Northwestern has done that.
That is true. They're 89 or 91. I don't remember which one it was, but they moved a home game, I think it was 1989, moved a Northwestern Ohio State game that was supposed to be played in Evanston. This is before Northwestern made money off of TV, before Northwestern could kind of draft off of Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State's TV revenues. So it was just kind of, they made whatever they made off of TV, but it wasn't much, and it was mostly selling tickets. And they said, well, we could sell more tickets to Ohio State football fans if we had the game in Cleveland. And so they had it in Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and Ohio State won something like 34-3. I don't think it was a particularly great game, but Northwestern, I guess, made more money. And more importantly, Tony, much to the joy of modern Ohio State football fans, I am delighted to inform you that Art Modell also made money off of this. So I'm sure that will bring great joy to our audience.
Yes. Congratulations to all of them. So, Tom, we're in the middle of our spring positional previews. Right now, we're going to talk about linebackers, in part because we talked with James Laurinaitis on Tuesday. First time we got to talk to him since he has been elevated to full-time assistant coach, and it had been a long time coming. And I say that, for one, it's kind of a lie, but two, just waiting, the 3 weeks or whatever that he was waiting to be elevated, or out recruiting with Ryan Day, not knowing if he's going to get the job and viewing it as a job interview. I thought all of that was incredibly interesting, and clearly he's getting the kind of reviews you want to hear from your recruits in terms of how he operates. And he passed the test according to Ryan Day since he got hired. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on what Laurinaitis had to say just about being the guy now, other than you can also include the fact that he gets his own office, which is not a small perk, and the amount of ownership that he now has for that position as a whole.
Well, he did talk about this in great detail and had some great answers, to the point where the morning show for Friday, the one that'll go up the Thursday afternoon, is going to be James Laurinaitis just talking about this stuff, like the coaching stuff. And there'll be a whole separate one with him talking about some players we'll have for probably Saturday afternoon, because there were some incredibly good, detailed, thoughtful answers from James Laurinaitis. So you can look for that in the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast feed in the next day to 3 days. But he is very clearly taking ownership. He talked about the fact that in recruiting, it's his show now. He gets to choose who they're going to go after. And in terms of deciding who's going to be playing, it's going to be his call. And who, the rotation, we talk about this in terms of like Tony Alford, the running backs, where why was this guy in for this drive and this guy was in for this drive? Well, that's Tony Alford's call. Well, for linebackers, now it's James Laurinaitis' call. And he seems more than ready to take on that mantle and that responsibility. I think this was sort of vaguely the plan all along, and then for a brief time it looked like maybe this suddenly wasn't going to be the plan, and then it was the plan again. And so I'm sure this, as it was going on, I'm sure it felt like an eternity for him figuring out what is he going to do, what is he not going to do. And it's one of those things that a year from now, that 3 week span is not going to matter at all, and it's going to be like, oh no, they they got rid of these guys at the end of the season, and then they promoted James Laurinaitis, and it's going to just, there's going to be probably an ellipses in the middle of that sentence, and no one's going to remember the 3 weeks that made up those 3 dots. But, now he's in that spot, and it feels, retrospectively, it feels like, yes, of course, this was the inevitable decision. And, he has already established that he can do, good big chunks of the job and is growing into the rest of the role.
Yeah, the timing of it, you forget the drama, like when Mike Vrabel came after Ryan Day to be the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, like after the 2017 season, and there was some thought like you're going to lose this guy after 1 year. So you move on from that, and it's like, you forget all of the drama. That's how you are able to overcome trauma, basically. You just move past it, you tuck it all into your belly, and you just ignore it, and it goes away eventually. And then sometimes it comes out through weeping and things like that when you least expect it, like you're at the mall or something, and you just start. I mean, we've all been there. Anyway,
I do want to. You said Mike Vrabel, you meant Mike Yurcich, just since.
Well, no. Like when Vrabel at Tennessee, there were rumors that he was going to go after Ryan Day.
Okay, sorry, you were talking about a quarterback coach. Got it. Yeah, sorry.
With the Titans, but yeah. So there's always little information that you hear, and you're like, ooh, and so you just have to wait for it all to work out, and it did. And now he's at Ohio State. And one of the things he talked about with being elevated is he was being recruited negatively against because other schools are saying, well, telling recruits he's not going to be there for you. He's just a graduate assistant. He's a GA. He can only do that for like a couple of years. Then you got to move on. And so now that can no longer be used against him, against Ohio State. And it's really going to be interesting to see what he can do as a recruiter on the road, because we know he's good in Columbus. He's good on campus, but now it'll be interesting to see how he does on the road. More importantly, in the immediacy, is how well he does getting his guys ready to play, because he said on Tuesday he wants 4 guys. He wants, obviously, at least 4 guys that he can play during a game, roll in there, roll out, and rotate and just get guys action. Last year they had 3 guys. He had 3 guys that he was comfortable playing. So when we're always being inundated with why isn't CJ Hicks playing, and we always try to say like, well, obviously the coaches aren't comfortable with him. They weren't. And so it was Cody Simon, obviously Tommy Eichenberg, Steel Chambers. Now you're down to 1 guy. Cody Simon is the only guy that is back that they were comfortable playing last year. So obviously you can't have that be the case this year. One of the things that Laurinaitis said about CJ Hicks is he just needs to learn to cut it loose. And it's interesting to me with that, like you want him to think less, but he also has to understand more and in order to do that. So you've just got to find that right mix of instinct and knowledge, but also just go play, because that's one of the things he's an athlete. And so he's been able to do that, but he's never really played linebacker until Ohio State. And so it's taken some time. And as you think about who the spring is most key for, like, I don't know if it's bigger for anybody than CJ Hicks.
It feels like going into that 3rd year, really, I'm kind of lumping CJ Hicks and Gabe Powers in together, where they're both going into that 3rd spring. They both have been kind of, I'm going to say waiting patiently, and deep down, I don't know how patient these guys ever are really, but they've been waiting for Tommy Eichenberg, waiting for Steel Chambers to finish playing, because those guys were returning starters last year. So of course they were going to play. So, you weren't going to unseat them as true freshmen in 2022. You weren't going to unseat them as returning starters probably in 2023. Now in 2024, those guys are gone. You've got Cody Simon back, and everyone else behind Cody Simon on that list has sort of an implied question mark behind their name. It's like, sure, maybe this is CJ Hicks' year. Sure, maybe this is Gabe Powers' year. Sure, maybe they move Sonny Styles from safety to linebacker. Like, these are all possibilities. I think they all have some real intrigue to them. Is this the year Arvell Reese? It's his 2nd year. He was banged up a bunch last year. is he really going to be a true linebacker? Or are they going to, I mean, he's someone who Laurinaitis talked about as a linebacker. Are they going to keep him there? Are they going to move him down to an edge? There's a lot of kind of question marks behind all of these guys. But to me, it's those third-year guys. It's CJ Hicks. It's Gabe Powers. If you're not a starter your second year, you're not a starter your second year. Well, that's what your third year is for. Cody Simon's going to be gone after next year. There's going to be an opportunity for you to potentially take on a bigger role. CJ Hicks, Gabe Powers, Sonny Styles, if he's in that linebacker mix, those guys are all technically draft eligible after this year. So you could lose any of them to the draft after this year if they have a big 2024 season. So, there are going to be more opportunities for Arvell Reese and, Nigel Glover, who also is a second-year guy. There are other opportunities for those guys. If you're a third-year guy and you've finally had the position, the depth chart sort of like the gates have been flung open and the guys who've been there for a while are finally gone. This is the spring when you have your opportunity to, you are now the guy who's at the head of the line. Don't get past. Make sure you get that, earn that spot that you've been kind of waiting for, because this is really your opportunity the next 15 practices.
Yeah. Tommy Eichenberg didn't play until his third year. So it's not unusual. It's not atypical. Sometimes, obviously, you come in with accolades and why aren't you playing? And doing a stream earlier today, somebody asked, is CJ Hicks a bust? I'm like, we are so far from dealing with that right now. Like, Laurinaitis said all of the right things about CJ Hicks. All of the expectations are that he's going to have a very big spring, very good spring. I would expect to see him out there quite a bit. You mentioned Sonny Styles, and we can talk so much about Sonny Styles. I think maybe we should push some of this to the safety talk on the next show, because there is a lot of room there to explore in terms of the thought process that is going to go into that move. But in terms of just day 1 through day 15 or practice 15 at linebacker, Cody Simon's not going to need much work. Laurinaitis said as much, and I think maybe said almost those exact words. So obviously he's going to be running with the ones initially. I don't know how much time he's going to get. I'm not expecting a ton. I am expecting at the outset for it to be Gabe Powers at the mic and CJ Hicks at the wheel when Cody Simon is not out there. And we will see how Sonny Styles mixes in. And again, I kind of want to push this talk off to the safety show. But do you think we will know March 5th, Tuesday, March 5th, the opening day of spring practice? Will we know at that point what Sonny Styles is doing? And do you think we'll know at that point?
I don't think we're going to know with any certainty. I think we're going to see Sonny Styles at linebacker at some point this spring. I don't know if that's going to be for one practice or for 15 practices, because I don't think the coaching staff knows. Like anytime Ryan Day gets asked about it, or Jim Knowles gets asked about it, or James Laurinaitis gets asked about it, it's kind of like, well, we're looking at a lot of things, and you have to have buy-in from everyone. And do the coaches and the player and the player's family and everyone is everyone on the same page in terms of what the plan should be? And until you have total alignment, which it doesn't, based on the fact that they're talking about that, the strong implication is you do not have total alignment from all of the parties that are necessary to make that happen. So until you have that alignment, I think you're going to have people who are pushing for him to move. And I know Mark Givler has been talking and banging the table for the fact that is a move that would be in Sonny's best interest and Ohio State's best interest. And I think that there's, you get the sense that if Ohio State's looking at that, Ohio State probably feels the same way, that's, there's at least a decent possibility that his best position is closer to the line of scrimmage than the safety spot. And we'll get to the depth chart at safety, but the path to the field in terms of playing 50, 60 snaps a game at linebacker is probably more clear than the path to the field at the safety positions right now. So yeah, I'm expecting to see it. I'm not expecting to see it in practice number 1 based on what we're hearing right now. That all could that could all change, But even if you just want to just look at the very superficial stuff, like when James Laurinaitis tweeted out a picture of the linebackers, Sonny Styles was not in there. When the defensive backs coaches tweeted out a picture of the defensive backs together for whatever, a Super Bowl party or whatever it was, there was Sonny Styles. So, I mean, even if you just want to go with the real superficial stuff like that, he very clearly still views himself as a safety, and or Ohio State still very clearly views him as a safety. So I think you're going to see that change at some point, but I'm not expecting it on day one.
Yeah, and we also have seen guys just move to a position for a day or, for a period of practice. Arvell Reese going to defensive end when they were down a guy last year and then moving back and forth to linebacker. I'm interested to see what he does. Obviously, this spring, you got Nigel Glover, another guy that came in way late after transferring in from Northwestern as a true freshman last year. See what he is up to. But yeah, this is, I think, just a big spring for, as you said, those third-year guys to see how they operate, how comfortable they look. I thought Gabe Powers looked pretty good in the practices that we saw last year. And Laurinaitis was talking him up. So we'll be watching that all spring long for as long as we will be able to watch it. Tom, let's move to the offensive line, where Ohio State is bringing back 4 starters from last season, adding in a starter in Seth McLaughlin from Alabama. Going to be a pretty interesting center competition there, though McLaughlin didn't come in to sit. I know Ryan Day said the same thing said that about Caleb Downs. Well, Caleb Downs didn't come here to sit. Like everybody that transferred, nobody came here to sit. So that will be interesting to watch. Anytime there is an offensive tackle in the portal, or not even in the portal, anytime there's an offensive tackle that could be in the portal, Ohio State fans are like, need to go get that guy. Got to replace their 2 tackles. Got to replace, got to get better. And based on the way Ryan Day talks about Josh Simmons, I don't think his job is in jeopardy at all, because he talks about how he's the most talented lineman they have, or he's got all the talent you could ever want, basically. It's up to Justin Frye to get that out of him. I think he's an all-conference caliber player. We'll see. And when I say that, I have to remind you that, not you, Tom, but Josh Fryer was first-team All-Big Ten last year by the media, third-team All-Big Ten by the coaches. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think Josh Simmons could do the same. But do you see his job as in jeopardy? Because I don't.
I think it would probably take something fairly extraordinary for his job to be in jeopardy. If Caden Proctor, the former Alabama left tackle who ended up going to Iowa, if Caden Proctor had gone in the portal and transferred to Ohio State instead of Iowa, I think Caden Proctor is probably coming to Ohio State to be your starting left tackle. So then at that point, Josh Simmons is probably your starting right tackle.
Right.
And then you're shuffling guys around and you're solving the right guard position that way. Barring something like that, I don't think they're going to be pulling a, redshirt freshman from San Diego State out of the portal to replace Josh Simmons like they did last year. I think they were coming out of spring going, this is a problem. We have to solve this problem right now. We need to get someone. I don't know that they're in we need to get someone mode right now. It feels like the line is a little more solid than it was a year ago. I don't expect Ryan Day to openly talk about the fact that the offensive line is his biggest concern, partway through spring or most of the way through spring. I think you have the pieces on there to have a national championship caliber offensive lineman. The pieces are there potentially. We'll see how the spring plays out. There's lots of different ways those pieces could get reshuffled and who wins the starting center job and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think they need to just go into the portal just to get someone. I think if someone great ends up in the portal, which is always a possibility, sure. You do not have a absolutely set it and forget it offensive line yet. That's not, they're going to be better. I don't know that they're going to be great. So I think they're potentially open for business, but not necessarily actively shopping every time any coach leaves any program.
Yeah, I would agree that if they can go grab the best left tackle in the portal, go do it. and Josh Simmons moves over to right tackle, I think he's one of your 5 best. So that's why I say I don't think his job is in jeopardy. Like, he's going to be in the starting lineup, in my opinion. And I think he is in line for a pretty good year at left tackle. Could it be more than that? Yeah. I'm not going to try to set the bar too high. I'll just stay at pretty good and go with that. Hey, on the other side, we know they're going to look at Josh Fryer at guard to see if there's something there, if they want to do that. I think a lot of that is contingent upon who can step up at right tackle. And that you're talking about Luke Montgomery, George Fitzpatrick, Zen Mahalski, those kinds of guys. And if guys haven't done it by this point, you're like, oh, I don't know it's going to happen for a 4th-year guy. But again, this is the offensive line. That didn't happen for Josh Fryer full time until last year as a 4th-year guy. So offensive line takes longer. So I don't think you can write anybody off just yet, or at this point, in terms of you've been here 2-3 years. Like, it's going to be an interesting competition if there is one, because the only open job really, the vacated job is right guard. And yet this is all tied together. Look, they're going to get their 5 best. And honestly, if Carson Hinsman is one of their 5 best, it would be very easy just to move him over to guard, and that's set. It doesn't seem like we're talking much about that. So a bunch of different moving parts and bringing this offensive line together. So the first question I'm going to ask you, Tom, is the starting right tackle on the Ohio State roster right now?
I'm going to say yes, because I think that they would have that feel pretty shaky about the offensive line coming out of the spring. And I think you have enough options there that the odds are in favor of something working out. And maybe the thing that works out is you bring in the superstar left tackle and you move Josh Simmons over from left to right. Maybe the answer is it's Josh Fryer. The media gave him first team All Big Ten, and no one's smarter than the media, so why would you switch anything there? It may be Luke Montgomery, who we've been hearing about. Maybe Luke Montgomery is the right tackle, and you move Josh Fryer inside often enough that it feels like there's something there that's not just sort of idle speculation. Second year, he was field adjacent enough. I don't know that he played enough, but he was, out there or involved in packages often enough that you feel like, okay, if you're a true freshman and you're doing that, then that's sort of the trajectory that puts you on the path to start your second year. So whether it's Josh Simmons or Josh Fryer or Luke Montgomery, or maybe it's Ed Mahalski, maybe it's George Fitzpatrick. You've got other guys in there who have been around long enough that there are viable options there. I think it's probably 75-25, 80-20 that the starting right tackle for game 1 is currently on the roster. I'm not saying it's like impossible. I just think it's not particularly likely that they pull someone out of the portal. But let's see how spring goes. You never know.
Well, in that way, it's almost like, is it more likely that the left tackle comes out of the portal than the right tackle? Because you're trying to find a sweet spot between like Josh Simmons and Josh Fryer and Luke Montgomery in the portal. And are you going to find somebody better than that? As opposed to, if you're looking for somebody that is really good in the portal and is an elite kind of guy, you're definitely going to go after that. But are you definitely going to go after a guy who is maybe a little bit better than what you have? You don't know. So I wonder if at that point it becomes more likely, and not that it's likely at all, but there's more likely, a larger likelihood that it's the left tackle that comes out of the portal. But it just also depends on who's in there. And we saw that last year they will go ahead and reach, but they reached in December and January for Victor Cutler. They weren't reaching in the spring. In the spring, they were desperate. And it's funny that they were so desperate, but they didn't necessarily have to reach. They were able to get a guy. Now, would he have been starting day one if they had more talent? Probably not, but I think it's better for them now that he has. So in terms of the right guard, I checked with Ohio State. Enoch Famahi is back for his 6th year. So You've got him. I think this is a time where Tigre Shabola can get really involved because, he moving back from tackle to guard, I think he has an opportunity to just fully immerse himself as a right guard and go and get this job. And of course, you got Carson Hinsman with all of that experience. Seth McLaughlin said he will play wherever. So he's got a bunch of experience. Right guard may be the most boring, least topic, least people want to talk about the least. Like, who cares about right guard? But for like us looking at the minutia, and to call right guard minutia is also not true. Like, it's a very important position, and it's the biggest question mark on the offensive line at this point. But I feel like they've got some good options. I'm fascinated to see how it goes. I do know that last spring, remember Justin Fry saying, Enoch Vermont, he needs to be one of my top 5 guys. I think he is one of my top 5 guys. I don't know how we're going to keep him out of the starting lineup. And then you see what happened in the Cotton Bowl. It's like there's some disconnect there, or something bad happened. So obviously he needs to be better than that this year in this spring. But I won't be surprised if Tigre Shabola kind of takes a little bit of a trajectory upwards in the spring.
I love the fact that you're prefacing this whole conversation on nobody cares about right guard. No one's talk about the right guard. Tony, I'm going to reference you to the 2023 Cotton Bowl and just refer you to twitter.com and or the huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse at BuckeyeHuddle.com. People wanted to talk about right guards that night, Tony. Centers, right guards. It is not necessarily the most exciting position, but it is an important one. And I think I go back to this time last year when you were putting together your pre-spring depth chart, and the right guard position was just like 7 names with or between them. And it was just like, yeah, it could be this guy or 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 this guy. And you're kind of in the same boat this year, but I feel like about the top 3 or 4 names right now are better than most, probably most of the names that were on there last year, where, it's, you have your choice between last year. It was kind of like, well, you can have bologna, or you can have liverwurst, or you can have, head cheese, or you can have pimento loaf. And then this year it's like, all right, so you've got like roast beef, and you've got like a nice carved turkey. You've got choices here that are not, liverwurst is probably not going to be starting at right guard for Ohio State this year. And, right guard worked out fine last year because it ended up being Matt Jones, and Donovan Jackson worked out and they kept him at left guard. It all worked out okay for Ohio State until the Cotton Bowl. But the overall quality of the top 8 names, top 9 names in that offensive line room just feels like it's so far ahead of where it was a year ago. And again, this does not mean they are the Joe Moore Award favorites or anything like that. It just means, boy, it was kind of a disaster this time last year, to the point that coaches were talking about the fact that, like, it's not great. It is a little bit of a concern. I think you're having a very different conversation about that open position this year, and the fact that there's only 1 open position this year rather than 3 last year.
Yeah, so many moving parts, because if this guy's your left tackle, then who is the right guard, and who is, they have a much better idea of the situation this year, and many more, but just better options. Everybody's a year older, year more experienced, and that's always going to help. So that will do it for the linebacker preview, the offensive line preview. I want to thank you all for tuning in. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up on this one. Hit the bell to be notified. And if you've not yet subscribed, you should probably do that to our YouTube channel. And of course, all ratings of all kinds, as long as they are 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice, as always, that is appreciated. And if you want to support us even more, you can find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member. Check us out there. Talk to us there on the message board. We are there at all times. So go ahead and check that out as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.